WSOU 89.5 FM, the loudest rock. I'm Valentino, and I'm joined today with Stefan from PUP. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you?
I can't complain. Feeling good. There's a lot of stuff to get excited about in the PUP fandom right now. You have your brand new record, The Unraveling of PUP the Band, out April 1st. How you feeling?
Uh, I'm relieved to be a band again. I'm very excited. We've been working on that record for a long time, and it's been a long couple years of not playing shows, so I'm real excited to get back at it.
Exactly. We just had this full year where it was just like almost like a void where everything was in limbo. Your tour is scheduled for this upcoming spring. How's it going to feel to get back out on the road and just start playing to people again?
I think it's going to be pretty crazy. I mean, playing live is a big part of what this band is. It's like, we're very much a live band, so it's kind of felt like a part of us was missing for the past couple of years, and I've enjoyed or tried to take advantage of the past few years, but at the same time, it can kind of feel like you're shouting into the void if you're not playing live and connecting with people and actually seeing people react to new music.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And sometimes, you'll write a record and the record will be incredible. Or like, you write a song on the record and that one song is like absolutely killer, but like live, it doesn't translate as well. And vice versa, you might have a song on the album that like, this is okay. But when you play it live, everyone loses their minds, and you don't really get to gauge it as well, in this last year.
Yeah, for sure. And uh, I like I don't I like to think that I'm the kind of person that doesn't need a lot of external validation, but I think we could all use just a little bit of external validation right now. I mean, like I don't spend too much time on social media, so it's easy just to forget that any of this matters. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's tough to, it's so easy to just have it be like swept in the void.
Exactly. Yeah.
But diving into the new record, this is super cool. 12-song track list. I kind of want to ask, when I'm looking at this track list, you have 3 songs titled 4-chord tracks. You have 4 chords, 4-chord 1, 2, 3. Can you give us the insight into that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a hard thing to describe. I kind of want to just like leave that for your first listen through the record, but a lot of that album kind of hinges on the first track, which is 4 chords, called 4 chords. And I'll say it's a weird song. It's definitely not like a, quote unquote single. We're not going to put it out before the record comes out. But I think uh, if you're a fan of what Pup does, there's a lot to dig in there.
Exactly. And I feel like that just helps like almost make like the record feel like a record. You have this running theme, you have this running kind of, song titles, song elements throughout the album. It really makes it cohesive.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think on all of our past records, there are themes that kind of run through the records. I mean, I've always kind of considered an album to be like a little snapshot of, uh, where I've been mentally for the 6 months or so or the year that we were writing and recording the record. Um, and this record's no different. There's a lot of commonalities and themes that run through the record, but it's just kind of the first time that we've ever uh, made specific reference to it on the album itself.
Now, you mentioned, the 6-month recording, writing of this record. Was that during the pandemic or did you start this process before?
No, it was all written and recorded during the pandemic, but I also like uh, I I I want to firmly say that this is not a pandemic record. I'm so sick of hearing about pandemic records. It's like I think I just kind of think that that's a super unoriginal way to look at songwriting. I view it more as for the first time in my life, I had a lot of time at home to kind of think about songwriting and reflect on it, and the whole band had a lot of time to kind of figure out how to craft an album that sounds exactly how we wanted it to sound. We've never had that luxury in the past because, we're just a band that is, we tour like 10 months of the year kind of thing. So we were always like the past three records have kind of been squeezed in between tours. Um, and so I kind of like really appreciated the opportunity this time to kind of spend a bit more time and make sure we kind of got it right. Uh, and I'm really proud of what we managed to accomplish on it.
Absolutely. And I actually fully agree with you about like when bands call it a pandemic record, it almost kind of cheapens it a bit because it's like, oh, you only wrote this because you had nothing to do. But if you don't call it a pandemic record, it's like, no, this is our, our genuine songwriting. We're so proud of this. Then that's like, it gives it an air of legitimacy.
Yeah, and not to mention, like obviously, if you're a songwriter, like you're gonna be influenced by what's going on. Like everyone's gonna be influenced on to a certain extent by what's been happening in our world. But it's such an uninteresting topic to write about. Um, I just found like I found like the essence of this pandemic is boredom for a lot of people, and it's like, man, I got enough going on upstairs that I don't need to be drawing on that experience too much to kind of put a record together.
Absolutely. We all lived through it. It's like, it was what it was.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but diving more into this record, I do kind of want to ask, when you put out the first singles, the first taste of the record, you had Waiting and Kill Something, but Kill Something is not on the album itself. Was that like a conscious choice?
Yeah, I mean, we recorded. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say there were like 14 or 15 songs that we recorded. Actually, more than that. It's probably 16 or 17 songs. And we just like I really I think all of us love Kill Something, the song, but we just felt like that it didn't really fit um on the album. It didn't make sense in a track listing, and we all really liked it. So it's nice to be able to put out a song that you really like, but just it didn't have a home on this record. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but that's just the honest truth.
No, I think that's a great answer because I feel like the pacing of a record is just so important. It can really like even if you have a record that the songs individually are incredible, but the pacing just feels a little off. It can definitely dampen the experience. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing that the four of us argue about a lot. Like probably even more so than any of the actual content or arrangement of the songs. It's more like once all the songs are said and done and recorded, we tend to argue a lot about the track listing and what's going to make the album and what's going to get cut and what's never going to see the light of day and what might see the light of day in a different form. It's a real point of contention in our band just because everybody forms different attachments with different songs, so it can get pretty heated and emotional. But at the end of the day, it's the four of us, and we got to come to an agreement on, make some compromises and just choose what we think is going to be best for the band as a whole.
And you're right that sometimes even if you're like really attached to a song, it'll find its way into the light one way or another. I mean, you look at the EP, This Place Sucks, earlier last year. All those tracks are like original and incredible, but also I couldn't really see any of those tracks being fit into morbid stuff. I couldn't, I don't know where they would even go in the track list.
Yeah, that was exactly it. And particularly on that EP, Anaphylaxis was a song that we all really liked, and we really struggled to make it work in the morbid stuff track listing. And it just sometimes you can write a song that you're really proud of, and if you're being honest with yourself, there's not a home for it on the record you're making, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Now, anybody that's heard me on the WSU airwaves knows that PUP is probably one of my personal favorite bands of all time. I really love every project you guys have ever done. Really, just like one of the few bands I would say has a flawless catalog. And one of the things I kind of want to get your opinion on. So, obviously, SOU has a lot of like heavy metal in our rotation. But I would argue like some of the more aggressive moments you've had, like on Old Wounds, on like Full Blown Meltdown, where you're screaming. It has so much more like impact than a lot of like death metal, could ever have. And I kind of want to know, A, like mentally how you get ready for those tracks, and B, physically, how do you perform that vocally?
Well, first of all, I'll just say thank you. That's really nice of you to say. It means a lot. Um, so much of songwriting and recording for me is just getting in the headspace. And to me, the heavy songs can't be faked. And like if we were the kind of band that just only made, if we were a hardcore band or something, I think I would struggle with that a lot. Um, because every time I went to write a song or every time I went to play a song, I would have to be in that kind of mental space, which I just I find that I'm not often in that. So I would need to fake it, or I would be a way more aggressive person than I am. Uh, but when I do have those moments of being in that headspace, I kind of try and do something productive with it. Uh, and it comes out in the form of songs like those ones. So uh, it sort of comes about naturally for me and for the band, especially Nestor who plays bass and Zach who plays drums. They kind of came up playing in heavy bands, much heavier than PUP, and listening to metal and stuff like that. So they definitely have a penchant for the heavy stuff, and when we go there as a band, that's kind of a zone in which they really, really shine. So it's cool. And vocally, I don't know. I've had a lot of trouble with my voice in the past, blowing my voice out and stuff. And I've just kind of gotten a lot better at it. I just worked on my singing a lot, but sometimes you just gotta let the the feeling take you over, right? Or else you're faking it. So I try to just get into the zone as much as possible and just let whatever happens happen.
Exactly. And that kind of brings up to the point we were talking about earlier with the pacing stuff. It's like the fact that you have like, more pop punk, more punk, more like kind of like a very eclectic track list, and then you get to that heavy moment. If everything was like just heavy like that, it wouldn't be as impactful. But I totally agree. And it's super cool to hear, the way you prepare for that. I got one more question for you today. Thank you again so much for joining us. Of course, I have to mention, as a huge horror fan, American Horror Story fan, new record was recorded in the American Horror Story season one house. Tell me about that. Like, how was that process?
It definitely was not recorded in that house. It just a house that looks a lot like it.
Oh,
uh,
that's funny.
but yeah, it was like we definitely recorded it in this really weird, creepy mansion, owned by the guy who produced the record. His name is Peter Cadis. He's also produced Interpol and the National and a lot of amazing bands that we love. But the house is like real old and real creepy, and it's got so we would discover new rooms in it almost every day. Like it was a labyrinth. And the attic where we recorded almost everything was also home to some bats, and it was just a really vibey, kind of weird vibey place. And I, and I don't know, sometimes it feels like when you're making a record, like getting the right vibe of the space that you're in kind of can make a huge difference to how the songs sort of emerge. So uh, we just wanted to put ourselves in this kind of weird situation. We were in that house for 5 weeks, and we didn't leave. Like we left only to get groceries, pretty much, and it was just 5 weeks of recording whenever we were awake. And you know, um, the album's called "The Unraveling of PUP the Band," and a lot of that comes from the fact that like after 5 weeks of not leaving a house with the same 4 or 5 people and just working on the project every waking moment, you start to lose perspective, and then maybe sanity. So I think the songs as we went got more and more insane. So there are definitely a couple songs on the record that it's like, oh, this is Pup doing Pup. They sound well balanced and yes, great. And then there are moments on the record I think where it's like, what has happened to these guys? They've gone off the deep end, and I love and treasure those moments on the record.
Absolutely. And some of like my favorite records, I know some of like, the best records ever written, you look at Volume 3 by Slipknot, you look at All We Know of Heaven by Paris. Those were all recorded in like creepy kind of houses, creepy recording studios. And so I'm sure that'll have its influence on, you guys when this record drops. You can already kind of hear it in, Robot Love Song. It's just such a cool, weird track. But yeah, again, Stefan, thank you so much for talking about today. We really, really appreciate it. For all of our New Jersey and New York listeners, you guys are coming to Starland Ballroom in Saraville on May 9th, and you guys are coming to Terminal 5 in New York City on May 11th. It's going to be super awesome. You guys are joined with Pink Shift, Sheer Mag, and Cloud Nothings. And of course, don't forget that new record, The Unraveling of PUP the Band, out April 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.